Hi, I'm Ryan Deslauriers. I lead the Eclipse Digital Accelerator and also support the Intelligence Homeland Security Division here at GDIT.
Hi, I'm Nabeela Barbari. I'm the Business Area Vice President for Cyber, Law Enforcement, Intelligence, and Citizenship, also in the Intelligence and Homeland Security Division at GDIT. And I'm excited to be here today with Ryan to talk about all things AI, all things mission, and how we are using AI to improve operations. So let's dive in. I want to start with the basic, how are we using AI to accomplish more simple tasks with our clients so that they can focus on more complex decision making and taking AI to the next level?
Sure, yeah, so some of the simplest things we do with AI right now at some of the programs I support revolves around automation of things like patching and scanning. So how do we use AI to understand what risks are? How do we layer some of the cyber threat intelligence on top of that and make the tools do the work for us, right? We're trying to work around the clock to stop some of these enemies against us. And how do we take advantage of AI? How do we get the scanning and the vulnerability assessments in place so we're not doing as much of that work?
So I mostly focus on the Department of Homeland Security and the Homeland Security mission, where there is so much opportunity for AI. And I think there's a lot to be learned and used from the work that your team does and what GDIT has done in that space. And specifically, we're in a unique position to help outpower and outmaneuver our state and criminal adversaries. In particular, with just getting some real-time anomaly detection activity. And as we talk about the cyberspace, I still think there's the way we can use AI to just improve operations, right? The regular reporting, the human resources and the business functions of DHS. DHS is a huge organization, and I think there's just a lot of opportunity there, and we're really uniquely getting there.
It's a challenge we see too, right? Like, how do we incorporate some of our basic functions and also layer on that risk element on everything too, right? Like, how do we take your continuous monitoring activities, but also factor in, what the enemy is trying to do against us, and how can we do that behind the scenes and more effectively?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think next is like some of our data challenges. So for me, I deal in an interesting environment, right? We have different classifications, we have mass amounts of data, a never-ending tool set. It's like, how do we take that data, normalize it, and make it actionable for our customer, right? And how do we enable them to do interesting things with that data?
Yeah, if there is one thing that I'm excited about more than anything in this next generation of Homeland Security, it's how do we use the data. It feels like we are in data is the new gold, and we are in the modern day gold rush, and AI is the fuel we need. Instead of mining for minerals, we're mining data. And the Homeland Security space has such unique subsets of data, the private sector, across the federal civilian enterprise, within all the different components. There's a mass amount of data that is not being used yet in a way that really takes us to the next level as a nation in securing everything from our borders to our networks. And data is really going to be the driver. I kind of see it as the beginning and the end. Data is going to help us teach and train and use our AI, but then it's also going to generate the output, how we're going to action it and how we're going to actually protect our nation in a different way to not just meet the adversaries where they are, but beat them.
And I'm glad you said action, right? Like, I see a lot of times we see different data points and it becomes just fancy dashboards, and there's not a lot of actionable data that come with that. On one of our programs, we created a tool called Evergreen. So what this tool does is it takes all this data, it maps it together, and makes it so we can give our customer a tool that they can prioritize risk and prioritize what problems they want to see, and using AI to help them, get to that decision point, which has been really helpful across multiple customers and has helped a lot with things like cyber audits, with our continuous monitoring activities, with risk assessments, a handful of different use cases there.
Yeah, you just said something that makes me excited to talk about predictive analysis, and I hope we're going to get there. Because how you use that data to respond in action, I go right into supply chain and I go into emergency management, and all these things are so critical for the security of our nation. But one thing I don't know that in our sector, at Homeland Security sector, we are still working with the magnitude of regulations and policies and precedents on the responsible use of data. So the various layers of data protection. Is that something that you guys face in your world, or how does Evergreen deal with that?
It is. I mean, my world's a little different where, in the Intel space, air-gapped environments, and how do we use a lot of these different models or train them in that, kind of architecture, right? It's like, it's a little more difficult than some of the classic use cases of AI. So it is a challenge, and it's something we're working on, right, across all different domains.
I'm so excited for DHS to get into this next level where we're using AI to take protected critical infrastructure information, or some of the more sensitive data that we get from our private sector partners and from industry alike, to really feed these machines and do some really innovative work on the edge that we are right on the cusp of.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of advantages too with kind of this defensive cyber side as well, right? Like some of the things we've done as well, kind of feeding onto this Evergreen, right? It's like, constantly adding enhancements to these tools. So things like LLMs, large language models, like how do I take all that data, ingest it, and then do interesting things with it? Some of the latest are like me asking the model, where's the risk? And it's taking into account where it lives on a network.
Yeah.
It's not just a vulnerability is equal here versus here, right? Like taking some of that knowledge and the different data we get and making it useful across the board. So there's a lot of interesting things there. We've had some fun metrics, I guess, when we go through some of these tools, and we've increased our remediation by almost like 400% by using some of these tools at our customer space, which is pretty neat.
It is going to be imperative that we really get the department to the next level as a community, as a commercial industry, as a systems integrator industry, getting the department to the next level of the automated remediation, right? And there's the multiple domains, right? We have the mobile domains. There's so many different networks. I think there's a unique challenge here, and using ML to automate how we're getting that information, how we're doing weak signal correlations much more quickly, much more effectively, and then just as quickly turning that into actionable analysis is really the next generation of the department. I really believe that, and it's an exciting time to be a part of that. I'm relatively new to GDIT, but definitely have more experience in that space. And this transition has been very exciting to watch. The AI is absolutely going to transform how we, again, not just meet our adversary where they are, but absolutely outpace them.
So you brought up predictive analysis earlier. Yes. Seems to be an area you're excited about.
I am.
So tell me your thoughts on that.
So everything from, again, the business operations of the Department of Homeland Security, it's still a relatively new agency compared to the other parts of the federal government. So there's plenty of work there, but strictly dealing with the adversarial approach to the cyber world, the department has a responsibility of everything from border security to supply chain risk management. And our ability to rapidly ingest information, turn it around, and see the trends that are coming down the pike is incredible. And okay, so I have a metaphor that I use with predictive analysis. It's like the bouncer at a bar, right? Imagine if the bouncer was not only responsible for checking your ID and seeing if you can get in, but he or she can also monitor your behavior and see when you need to get out of there and go home before it's too late. That is how I look at predictive analysis with AI. We are going to be able to use biometrics. We're going to be able to use the data that we have and the data we're still collecting to really get ahead and get left of emergency management, left of border security, and various operations that are forward-leaning in the cyberspace.
Yeah, some of the areas that we use predictive analysis is in threat hunting type activities, right? So understanding the patterns now that different adversaries are using to attack us and which vulnerabilities that they are exploiting, and then taking those vulnerabilities, ingesting them into our models, understanding where they're at on the actual network so we can predict what they're going to do and when they're going to do it is a pretty neat use case that we've come across with some of our customers, as well as like a more unique area, which is like behavioral analysis, right? So what we're doing there is like tracking a user. Here's what their general tasks are each day. And if they show up to the office every day at the same time, all of a sudden they show up at a different time and start printing off mass amounts of paper. It's, interesting things we can do with that data, things like insider threat, and then, exploitations as well.
Really important stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a unique, maybe not, it's not an insurmountable challenge, but a unique challenge, right? There's the Homeland Security enterprise writ large has spaces and networks across the nation. There are so many entry points. And certainly use of the cloud and AI has opened up that aperture, right? The risk platform has definitely grown, but so is our technology and so is our capability. So it's just a matter of getting those two things aligned. And it's, where you said threat hunting, and I think that's a really interesting topic in the sense that there's a lot of chatter about how AI is going to replace humans, or at certain parts of in the security community, threat hunting is still a very manual activity, and there is absolutely a space for that. Have you seen? Has that been an
like
issue?
The
or
balance
anything?
between
right.
Okay.
Like there's a need to get a little bit more automated, right? With getting those threat hunting capabilities way left of boom.
And we're still trying to figure out use cases on this, right? I heard an interesting metric the other day where it was, we've only really scratched the surface on what use cases are available. It's like 98% of the use cases in AI haven't even been thought about yet. So, that's where I get excited is like, we're only scratching the surface on things right now on what we can do with some of these tools. So it's gonna be pretty exciting moving forward on like understanding what else these different models and whatnot can do. And the humans, they are very involved in this process, right? Like
Absolutely.
The fine tuning of some of these things to make them work, taking care of basic tasks is great. And then on top of that, it's like, now we can focus on more strategic initiatives as well.
Yeah, and it's going to help us get way more proactive than reactive. And it's also brings up the need for a very, at least in my world, right, a very dependent infrastructure in the public-private partnership. It is undoubtedly our reality that industry and the commercial community is going to find some of these adversarial behaviors at times before the government will, and vice versa. And that trusted partnership is literally, I think, one of the biggest keys to our shared success in this space.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk some cyber defense. Building off the Evergreen example, what are some of the day-to-day streamline activities that you have seen? There's so many. I don't know how you're going to choose one, but
yeah, a lot of the focus with us is, how do we continuously monitor our systems and how do we use tools like Evergreen to do that, to make data available. I have a workforce that's around the globe, right? So they don't have the ability to reach back to some of our engineering staff. They don't have the ability to have contact, right? So having AI to provide this data and do a lot of the analysis for them, and make it consistent data across the board has been really important tool for tools like Evergreen.
I'm excited to learn more about Evergreen. As I mentioned, I'm still relatively new to GDIT, so I haven't dug in yet. I think there's going to be this power of proactive security where the technology will know some of these behaviors before we will. There's a lot of challenge with behavioral analysis and using that as our defense forward. But I think there's, again, with the data that we have at our disposal, applying that is going to be, as an end user, it's going to make all the difference. And so I think the work that GDIT is doing is really exciting. It's what compelled many of us to come here.
For sure.
It's right on the edge of that level of innovation and taking it to the next level. I think the biggest difference that I've seen, what I'm most excited about, is our understanding of mission. The community here, and this goes back to the need for humans, it is the humans here that are taking our technology and our ideas to the next level. And that is something I have not seen yet until getting here. And it's going to be a really important part of the public-private partnership, of getting ahead of the adversary and just making these tools smarter.
It is, and it's exciting, some of the programs that we're a part of as well, and like how they're actually, heavily involved in some of these problem sets, and we're the ones, working with the customers to try to create these solutions across the board. It's like you said, it's a really exciting time to be here.
It is. We've talked about predictive analysis. Let's talk about trend analysis and perhaps some forecasting. I think at the Department of Homeland Security, and again, the Homeland Security community writ large, we have a broad spectrum of risks and needs. the trend and the forecasting on where we're going, again, I think is really dependent on a couple things for our world: the public-private partnership, the use of data, and the responsible management of data. Right, with all that data comes a huge responsibility. And then I think, prioritizing the so what and the what next. I think the real opportunity here for the department is to take these AI capabilities, advance them in a way that helps us get to the border in ways that we couldn't before. See what's happening, predict what's happening during emergency response. We use predictive analysis for floodplains and how we run insurance programs, but using that same intelligence, but at the next level, to predict market behavior, buying behavior, supply and demand, and then supply chain as a result. It is going to exponentially make government more efficient, more effective in ways that we have yet to see, but that is absolutely a demand.
And the efficiency thing, right? That's a main goal of ours, is like, how do we do our job faster, and better, right? And more efficiently. And, it's something that is a challenge at first. And just understanding data at some point too, right? It's like, how do we train these models correctly to actually do what we want them to do?
Yeah.
We like to start from the right and understand like what the end goal is. And, most people kind of go left to right. We try to start on the right and understand what they want to see, and, kind of work backwards as well. And, do some of that in our fine tuning as well.
It is the fine tuning. And again, where the human element comes in. This is, I never see AI as a replacement of humans. It's an augmentation of humans. One of the biggest vulnerabilities we actually have in the AI space is this idea that our biggest threat is some code. I think our biggest threat is that cyber and AI and these terms are unrelatable. I think people, including myself at one point, said, well, that AI stuff is for the cyber folks. But really, whether you are on the front lines or you are doing recruiting in HR or managing the finances, you are on the front lines of cyber.
You are, right? And we have a lot of different non-cyber use cases for AI,
Tremendous.
but it all feeds in together. Like having tools that do code monetization, right? That's an interesting use case, and how you become more efficient with that. In cyber, it's not just vulnerabilities and threats. There's a policy side as well. So how do you create models where I can ingest those policies and keep those up to date as well, and ask that model questions on how we operate as a different agency?
Yeah.
Is other interesting use cases as well.
One of the things I've learned since joining here is how much work we do in the education space, and that's really exciting because it took me a while to get there. I definitely was more into the human part of Homeland Security, and now I couldn't be any more excited about the cyberspace. And someone said to me one day, well, Nabeela, you don't need to be a mechanic to know when your car is making noise. So we don't need everyone to be a cyber expert or an AI expert and an engineer to know when that email didn't sound right or this didn't look right. And likewise, we are now really grateful to have technology that says this person is swiping, coming into the building at odd times, and getting so far ahead of that is what I'm most excited about, the forecast, what I'm most excited about Homeland Security.
And this all maps to like our zero trust stuff, right, as well, right? You kind of filter those different pillars in as well, and like, how do we integrate AI to feed into that and make it easier for us to, the challenges of devices and users and behavioral activities and things like that. Having all that and meshing it into one product is really powerful tool.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
This has been really fun. Thanks for chatting with me today. All right. Thank you for watching, and for more information on GDIT and some of the topics we've discussed today, go to gdit.com/perspectives.